of mercy and forgiveness. We thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, that bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such big favor. That is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all our sins, that they should not bring separation between you and us. May it be your will before you, our God and God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you. May you listen to our utterances and open our closed heart to the hidden studies of your Torah. May our study be pleasant before your place of honor, as the aroma of sweet incense. And may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul to all of our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us so we shall not stumble through our study, and by their merit enlighten our eyes and our learning, as it is stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so I will see wonders from your Torah, because from his mouth, God, Yirah, gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterances of my mouth and thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God. Yirah, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen.
Amen. So we are in VAYERA, chapter 23. And Lot went up out of Tzoar. Vaya Lot. And Lot went up, Tzoar, out of Tzoar, and dwelt in the mountain, and his two daughters went with him. Vayeshev Bechar, Uvashti Benata. So these two daughters are equal to the partzufs of Leah and Rachel on the side of the Sita Achra. Oftentimes they're called two leeches, for the two leeches say have, give. Bracious 1930, he asks, why did he go up out of Tzoar? He replies, because he noticed that Tzoar was close to Sodom. That is why he left there. Rabbi Yitzhak then began the discussion by quoting, and it is turned around and about by his counsels, that they may do whatsoever he commands them. This means the Holy One, blessed be he, arranges events in the world and creates destructive lights to accomplish his actions, and afterwards he turns them around again and again in different ways. This teaches us, signified by the opening rabbi for 296, that Yitzhak is Gevura. And so here the idea is that the Holy One, blessed be he, uses destructive lights ultimately to accomplish a higher goal. And so sometimes in life we'll go through very difficult hardships, and we may not understand why we're going through that hardship and why these destructive lights seem to be upon us, but ultimately there's a higher purpose. And so the Holy One, blessed be he, must turn around these destructive lights again and again in different ways in order to ultimately accomplish the task. So he asks, and with what does he turn them around? And he replies, this is done by his counsels. That is, the Holy One, blessed be he, plans, schemes, and invents reasons to turn things around. This teaches us that no matter what situation we find for ourselves, the Holy One, blessed be he, schemes, as it is, to turn things around. A great example of this is timelines and default timelines, and often is the case that we kind of place ourselves behind the wheel, as it were, driving and controlling and micromanaging our own life. And yet you'll find that the ideals that we place for ourselves never come out the way that we intend them to, because the ideals that we paint for ourselves aren't really aligned with reality. And so because of this, we oftentimes will get ourselves into all kinds of trouble and all kinds of hardship and all kinds of difficulty. And that's because what our mind has developed, or what we place ourselves through and in via trying to control the circumstances of our lives and guide and control time in the future, often does not work out for the best for us. But the Holy One, blessed be He, plots and schemes to take these events, even though we may cause unnecessary hardships for ourselves, and turns them into good. And this is the secret of who brings a clean thing out of an unclean thing. So He plans and changes and invents reasons to turn things around. That means you may have gotten yourself into a lot of trouble. You may have gotten yourself into a situation that you can't possibly see yourself getting out of. And that's because we have a need and a desire to try and control our lives. But this is not the way of the Holy One, blessed be He. However, the Holy One, blessed be He, loves every person enough to allow them to make mistakes, right? Enough to make the mistake. It means he doesn't infringe on your choices. He will allow you to utilize your choices even if it's to your detriment. And then if a person chooses to perform teshuvah and a person chooses to walk with him, or has even the slightest desire to turn towards him, take those schemes, take those mistakes, take those difficulties that you've placed yourself in, and turn them around, so that they are completely changed and are not similar to what they seemed to be previously. Because oftentimes life can seem difficult. So you may be going through different kinds of hardship. You could be going through hardships financially, or mentally, or emotionally, or physically. And in the midst of the hardship, we can't see or understand what the higher purpose is, because suffering is an incredible teacher, because suffering is something that's very hard not to look at. It is very hard to ignore suffering. It's why it's such a great teacher. It's such a great teacher because you'll remember when you suffered. And so therefore, the Holy One, blessed be He, will take these things and completely change them so that they're not similar to what they seemed to be previously. That they may do refers to the doings of people and the ways in which people accomplish their deeds. Again, who's driving the vehicle? Is the Holy One, blessed be He, guiding the vehicle, or are you guiding the vehicle? And by the vehicle, I'm not necessarily talking about what needs to be done here in this physical world. More of what I'm referring to is the spiritual destination. Where is the spiritual destination? Where is the end goal of tikkun for the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama? Are we trying to take control of those things, or do we allow the Holy One, blessed be He, to guide us in spiritual matters? For those that allow the Holy One, blessed be He, to guide them, they'll find that even the most difficult situations become turned around, because you can mysteriously develop insight and discernment into any given situation to see the Holy One, blessed be He, in all things and working through all things. But this is determined on how we accomplish our deeds. When we try to control things, and when we try to, especially when it comes to spiritual matters of our own self, when we try to control things, instead of seeking guidance, seeking how to live a proper life, or how to do not what's righteous in one's own eyes and not what is wise in one's own eyes, but rather align themselves what the will of God actually is for every individual, when we align ourselves with that will, then He is able to manifest in such and such a way. But in absence of manifesting that will, this term, according to their deeds, refers to the scenarios in which we find, or individuals or people find things to be wise in their own eyes, to be holy in their own eyes, to be righteous in their own eyes. And instead of surrendering, that is to say changing, that is to say acknowledging, for it's written, my ways are not your ways and my thoughts are not your thoughts. And so this causes these interactions of these destructive lights to occur, because the Holy One, blessed be He, ultimately that's a path of error, death, and destruction. And so He will allow a person to go on their own journey, and they may go on their own journey for a very long time. And when they go on this journey, the Holy One, blessed be He, ultimately brings and arises those destructive lights. And those destructive lights serve Him, because instead of following the path that the Holy One, blessed be He, destined for us, we're trying to govern and control our own lives. We're trying to micromanage God. And we need to understand that God has everything in control. So who's driving the wheel? Are you driving the wheel in which a destination we don't know, kind of figure it out on the way? Or do we allow the Holy One, blessed be He, to be the one behind the wheel, and then we're passengers? And we don't really have to think about all of the difficulties of individual things, because we know where the destination is. We know what's going on. And so this is in which they accomplish their deeds. This is how He turns things around and changes the activities of the destructive lights. Because the Holy One, blessed be He, changes the destructive lights, because we often invite terrible variables to exist in our lives. And the Holy One, blessed be He, has to change these destructive lights around when there's even an inclination of Shuvah, which means even a smallest desire in order to correct. Then the Holy One, blessed be He, works with you in order to change and mitigate the destructive lights. And whatsoever He commands them upon the face of the world and the earth means that events change because the activities of people change. This tells us that timelines change, which means outcomes. What futures are being emanated is determinate entirely upon our actions. And because nothing is really still, but everything is evolving and changing, we still have the ability to make changes in our actions. And we can finally say, okay, God, I can't take any more of trying to control my life, trying to do everything on my own, trying to drive the car of destiny, as it were, and surrender that to the Holy One, blessed be He, and understand Yirah Hashem l'chaim, that the ways of God tend to life. Because we have a difficulty with placing trust in anything, because our own existence are a lie. Our own existence is a lie. Because our existence is just a culmination of collective sums of experiences forming perceptions, which in and of themselves are a lie. So if our entire idea of existence is a lie, then of course we don't feel easy naturally trying to trust into the Holy One, blessed be He, or to follow the Holy One, blessed be He. But when it says Yirah Hashem l'chaim, it says the awe of God tends to life. You have to ask yourself. So when you come to the Holy One, blessed be He, when you learn His letters, and when you come into the secret of the supernal Torah, you say, you see the center column, it's yellow. Does the center of your body produce yellow? You see the left, it's red. Does every female produce red? See the right, it's white. Does every male produce white? Does Eloha separate swim from Shin? And so when you start to see that, then you ask yourself, okay, what's the proverbial root of that? And the answer is, well, this is the light of God. Well, then if that's the light of God, then you must understand that when you're involved with that material, when you're interacting with that material, when you acknowledge and take the time to behold and witness to it, which is the secret of what can I take as a witness to you, what can I take as a liken to you, you're actually interacting with God, because the root of that light is God. And therefore, if you're interacting with God, it's written, Yirah Hashem l'chaim, that the awe of God tends to life, so the ways of God tends to life. So then, therefore, if you're interacting with the light of God, you must know that it's to tend to life, meaning that all the ways of God tend to life. And so then, therefore, it puts down the doubt, fear, and all the other things that come into play when we try to control the spiritual direction of our development. And so it says, thereby turning around those same activities that the Holy One, blessed be He, commands them to accomplish upon earth, and they are changed in many different forms in the world. All are according to the quality of the activities of the people. With these words, Rabbi Yitzhak began the discussion to understand the issue of Ammon and Moab, and how they were formed as a result of corrupt action, and how all kings of Judah issued from them, even King Messiah. And so Ammon and Moab, this is difficulty, because I thought King Messiah comes from some clean yichus. I thought Melech HaMashiach is going to come from some clean place, but clearly his yichus is entirely problematic. He's an entirely problematic character. He's an entirely problematic character because he operates essentially outside of the rules and in stark contrast to everything we think we understand about anything. It means he defies every single thing that we think we define as holiness. He defies every single thing that we think about how things should be done here. He's a paradox in that manner. And so it says, Rabbi Eleazar, of course, we begin to discuss Zeranpin, and in the nature of actions, the nature of midos. And it is turned around and about by his schemes. This means that the Holy One, blessed be He, guides the course of events and causes certain actions to be performed in the world. But he schemes. He has to scheme. And what does that mean? What does it mean, scheme? Scheming is like plotting. But why does he have to plot? It's because most people are incessant on trying to control things. But the Holy One, blessed be He, loves his creation so much that he will allow them to be wrong. He'll allow them to make those mistakes. And that's something that godly love has, because there's different kinds of love. You have love for a friend, love for family, love for a hobby, love for a video game, love for all kinds of different things. There's love for your partner, right? But what about godly love, the love of God? Godly love is something that we don't really understand. We don't understand because the truth is all those other forms of love are really just selfish limitations. And what do I mean by selfish limitations? It means that every single one of those loves are conditional. Your love for your partner, you only love them so long as they reciprocate it. If they stop reciprocating their love, you would stop loving them. What kind of love is that? Is that love? No, that's not real love. That's love based off of a condition. And you can see how diabolical that is, right? When it comes into all the other forms of love, right? Uh, Love of friends, so on and so forth. It's always some kind of conditional, reciprocal situation. When it comes to the Holy One, blessed be He, it's something way beyond that, right? Because we do things that in any other form of love would absolutely not be considered love because it would break the reciprocation. It would break the condition by which that love exists. But the Holy One, blessed be He, still loves us. And that kind of love is He loves you enough to love you when you're wrong. He loves you enough to love you when you're going down the wrong way, when you're making mistakes. And He loves you enough to be there in the midst of you going the wrong way, doing the wrong things, and making mistakes. And so this means the Holy One, blessed be He, guides the course of events and certain matters before in the world. As soon as the people are convinced that the events are stable, the Holy One, blessed be He, turns them around and around. As soon as you think you're good, the Holy One, time to throw in more chaos, more events, more things, more, because the reality is stability is a complete tikkun, is a complete tikkun. And so we ask ourselves, well, why does the Holy One, blessed be, keep doing this? Why does my life keep having this variable or this variable? Or why am I feeling these emotions? Or why is this thing happening or that thing happening? And it's because you have to ask yourself, are we trying to control God's will? Are we trying to forge reality around our personal ideals? Are we trying to project our ideals in the place of what God desires? Or do we surrender those ideals to God and allow God's will to be done and not our own? When we try to force our ideals in reality, when we try to control reality through the lens of our own personal biases and ideals, this is antithetical to God. And because it's antithetical to God, God consistently will throw chaos after chaos after chaos, new variables. As soon as you think you're stable in a reality where your ideals are dominant, immediately the Holy One, blessed be He, schemes. Immediately He causes a variable to show you that you're wrong, to show you that you're in error. And the reason why all these difficulties come to happen at the highest level is really to break you down until you have nothing left. And why does a person have to be broken down until they have absolutely nothing left? Because for many people, that's what it takes in order for them to finally let go of that spiritual wheel and stop trying to control their lives and stop trying to control other people's lives and stop trying to drive time, stop trying to direct the future. Let God direct the future. And anything that isn't aligned with the true direction of the future, He destroys. So this is what it means. When people are convinced that events are stable, the Holy One, blessed be He, turns them around and around and completely changes them again, meaning new variables, new things. And for the wise that understand the ways of the Holy One, blessed be He, they'll be able to see God moving in every situation. And that's really Mochin Eloha, right? When you have a divine mind, you stop trying to see what's wrong with the reality not matching your ideals. You stop trying to look at reality and grieving about how reality isn't a reflection of what your ideals desire it to be. As soon as you let that go, you can begin to see God in everything. But as long as you're looking at reality and are angered or sad because it doesn't match the ideals you're projecting onto it, you have to realize you have a problem with yourself. That's called spilling seed onto the ground. It's defiling God because you're limiting God to your own ideals. You're limiting God and how things should be according to you. And really what that is, it's a megalomaniac. It's a God complex. That's a sociopath. Very dangerous way of thinking. And the Holy One, blessed be He, can't have those things. And so he turns them around and completely changes them. Here, Rabbi Eliezer disagrees with Rabbi Yitzchak's explanation that in the beginning, the activities were disrupted by destructive lights, but later were turned around and about and amended by the Holy One, blessed be He. Rabbi Eliezer explains that in the beginning, they were good and worthy of existing in the world, but were eventually corrupted by the doings of the people. As a result, the Holy One, blessed be He, turned them around and about for the better, if the people repent and atone for their misdoings. Misdoing really means misalignment, because there either is a God or isn't a God. If there is a God, then this is God's creation, not our creation. If it's God's creation, then God has a will and a purpose for the creation. And then therefore, things that are outside of the alignment of God's will for the creation is what causes all the evil in the world, and ultimately what causes all of the suffering. And one of the ways that God causes the suffering, because remember, the ZOHAR is a test. And again, when I talked about setting preconceived notions of our own ideals, we're really just setting ourselves up for suffering, because reality cannot, will not ever match your ideals, because you have human ideals, and your ideals, 99.99999% are grounded in what is best for you, not what is best for the world, not what is best for others. And so then when things don't meet our ideals, we feel let down. When we feel let down, we feel sorrow. This is, in truth, a byproduct of error, and it creates suffering because we've placed for ourselves an expectation on reality, an expectation on God. And then when that expectation is not met, we suffer. But this is a byproduct of error and a lack of seeing God and a punishment for trying to control reality. The word by his counsels is spelt without a yod, which indicates the singular form, and could be compared to a potter who shapes vessels from clay. As long as the stone wheel is still revolving, he can fashion the pot according to his taste and even change its shape. This is possible only while the pots are still turning. As to say, the soul. So turning everything around means as long as you're alive. As long as you're alive, as long as the wheel is moving, the Holy One, blessed be He, can remold your vessel. Even if your vessel is crooked or something is wrong with it, right? As a potter, he can correct the errors. Even if those errors be terrible, the entire vessel could essentially become misshapen and be good for use for nothing, except that it be still on the wheel, can be repaired, can be fixed. And so then we have to understand that the Holy One, blessed be He brings a clean thing of an unclean thing. Even when we're in this state of trying to control reality, even when we're in this state of trying to project our own ideals onto reality and limiting God into the scope of our own God complexes, He still loves you and He still works with you, but He corrects you. He corrects you like a father who corrects any child. And He does this through the complexity of emotions. And when you start feeling emotions, especially harsh emotions, emotions that are complex, emotions of betrayal, emotions of sorrow, emotions of hatred and anger, right? This is the Holy One, blessed be He, using those destructive lights, which are really just the emanation of the kalim, the lights inside of the kalim, to communicate something to you. And should you be 100% honest with yourself, you will find that the root of all of these things is some kind of error, right? Either you've placed some unreasonable expectation and reality did not match that because our ways are not the ways of God, or some other thing. But it ultimately is rooted in some kind of error. And then these emotions and such are a byproduct of two things. One, the error itself. And two, not being able to see God's hand working. Because if you could see God's hand working, then no matter what you would go through, you wouldn't suffer. You wouldn't be angry. You wouldn't be sad. You wouldn't be doing any of these things. Because as I started, Yirah Hashem l'chaim, that the ways of God tend to life. And this is why it was so severe about the first precept, because the person who understands the first precept, which comes to include Yirat Hashem l'chaim, that is to say that the awe of God tends to life, those other types of fears, Yirah hara, which means that if you're sad and you're angry about how things are going and you're feeling this and you're feeling that, it's because you are not fulfilling that first precept at all. Had you been fulfilling that first precept, you would not feel any of those things. Even if the same things were happening to you, you would not be feeling any of those things. And a great secret is that pain is inevitable. We will experience pain in life. But the truth is, suffering in the midst of that is a choice. And that choice is determined on whether or not we decide to have Yirat Hashem or Yirat Hara. Whether we choose to look at God moving, then even if we see pain and experience pain, which we will, but if you can see the hand of God moving in the midst of it, then you won't suffer. But if we fail to see that and we cleave to the evil, and the evil is rooted in the desire and will to receive, which is really those self-projected ideals and limitations upon God, which is really avodah zarah, that is Yirah hara. Thus, all of these aforementioned things happen. So similarly, the Holy One, blessed be He, turns His actions around and about by His counsels, minus the Yud, which is in the singular form. But what is His counsel? His counsel is the lower court of judgment. That is the nukva of Zeranpin, which corresponds to the pots of clay turning in front of the potter. And He changes them from one vessel to another, because it needs one correction to another correction. Right? Why do you feel sad? Well, you're going to you continue to feel sad until you correct something. Right? What is the feeling of sorrow? It means something is in error. And the root of it, the root of all of these things, ultimately, is the inability to see God working in whatever it is that you're afraid of, or whatever difficulty in the emotion that you're having. Some people, it's like, oh, I can't stand this person, I hate this person, this, that, and the other thing. Well, maybe God's trying to tell you that person shouldn't be in your life. And because you keep trying to keep that person in your life, you keep suffering. Because you're refusing the correction that God is providing for you by giving you the light to not desire it in the first place, but you ignore it. And because you ignore it, by trying to control it, control reality, you continue to feel anguish. Right? Because a person suffers when they're in an environment that's not suited to their spiritual needs. It's called purgatory. It's the condition where a person is in between environments and they're in an environment that's not adapted to their spiritual welfare. So this lower court of judgment is responsible. It goes from one vessel to another vessel. He starts afflicting you physically. Why did he start afflicting you physically? Because you're in error. Something in your life is wrong. You're doing something wrong. And once you can notify that by being humble and acknowledging that you are in error, then you can change it. It's like an alcoholic or a drug addict. You're not going to stop being a drug addict until you finally admit that you have a problem. If you don't admit that you have a problem or recognize that you have a problem, you're not going to control anything. You're not going to be able to make a change, right? So then, therefore, it's imperative to understand these destructive lights. When you start feeling these ways, you start experiencing these things, you need to be 100% honest with yourself. Because the truth, as I've said, all of it is rooted in the inability to see God working. And if you just were able to see God working, you would be able to receive the correction. And that's what it means from vessel to vessel, right? Because there are different kinds of suffering, but all of these things in suffering are rooted in that same cause, being outside of Yirah Hashem. And all this is done to reflect people's actions, because ultimately, when you're in error, God reflects error back to you. And so suffering is a byproduct of error, because ignorance produces error and error produces evil. Evil and error are the root of suffering. Suffering is a byproduct of error. And suffering, which is a byproduct of error, is a byproduct of darkness. And darkness is ignorance, because you are ignorant of the fact of God doing something. You can't see God in whatever is going on. And because you can't see God in whatever is going on, the Holy One, blessed be He, is reciprocating your error. And He reciprocates that error with destructive lights. And He does this to turn you, because you become like a donkey that doesn't want to move. And so they take a hot iron and move the donkey. And what is the hot iron? Suffering. It's suffering, because you will remember suffering. But it doesn't have to be this way. It really doesn't. And the Holy One, blessed be He, doesn't rejoice in causing suffering. Right? It's not how He desires. And ultimately, all His ways are, as I've stated, the chaim, to life. And so even the suffering that He afflicts to you is really rachamim. He's really trying to communicate to you goodness and mercy and blessing. But if we fail to see that and prolong it, then He has to use more destructive lights, more destructive lights, more destructive lights, until you're utterly annihilated. And there are people that it requires them losing everything, mentally, emotionally, financially, physically, relationships, every single thing be taken from them, until they finally let go of the spiritual driver's seat, get out of the seats, and not your way, but God's way. Stop trying to be God. Stop trying to control reality. Stop trying to project your ideals, and come in alignment with the ideals God made for this reality. Align yourself with the will of Hashem. Don't align Hashem to your will, because it'll never work. So these are a reflection of people's actions. The Holy One, blessed be He, changes the form of the vessels in accordance with the actions of the people. If the people perform good deeds, the clay pots revolve to the right, which is chesed. If their actions benefit humanity, but benefiting humanity is not the will to receive. Because oftentimes, and I've said about the nature of love, what we call love is really an abomination, because it's conditional. It's conditional. If love is conditional, then it's a lie. It doesn't exist. You know why it doesn't exist? Because the second that that condition is not met, love doesn't exist, which means it never really existed. It was just a byproduct of a lie. It was a byproduct of some condition, some illusion manifesting itself. And those conditions of love, as I've stated, love of relationship, love of friend, and love of all of those things, which are conditional, and when they're not met, there is no more love. That doesn't benefit anyone but yourself. And those are all forms of manipulation, control, and at the highest level, abuse. Because that's what it really is. Because it requires the abuse of others to conform, to control, and to manipulate them into your ideals that you, with a God complex, are projecting to control other individuals. That is not for the sake of humanity. And that is not the way that God operates. God tends to the well-being and the needs of every individual as a unique individual, not trying to conform them and change them from what they are. But this is called nurturing, recognizing that every person is different. Every person is unique. Every person has a different tikkun. They're not the same tikkun. Human beings are not some mass-produced factory object. There are no two people that are the same. And the Holy One, blessed be He, nurtures every individual at every level. And at no point does He ever stop nurturing. But with those false forms of love, which have all of those limitations, that is the opposite of nurturing. That is not tending to humanity. That's controlling, forcing, manipulating, and ultimately changing, trying to change people into something that they're not. So Sodom and all the goodness will be drawn down into the world. As long as the same wheel turns to the right, events will be positive. The world will evolve with it and receive the doings and actions of the right column, which is Chesed. And that's if you just will but see God in everything. If you will just understand that if you seek God and you interact with God and you know Yirah Hashem L'chaim, you fulfill that first precept, then you don't need to worry about the rest. God will go before you and pave a way. And if God goes before you and pave a way, you have to trust Yirah Hashem L'chaim. And it's not even to trust. The truth is you have to know it. Because trust is still in fear. Trust is, I trust that something isn't going to go wrong, but still your brain is entertaining even the possibility of something going wrong. And this within itself is really not Mochin Eloha. It's really not knowing God, that He tends to life and concerns Himself with the honor of everything. So, but if people intend to sin, then the Holy One, blessed be He, will direct His counsel, which is the Nukva, that constantly moves and which was revolving to the right, to turn around and revolve to the left. And He turns the objects and vessels which were to the right to the left. And so then the Holy One, blessed be He, begins to come after us. He begins to change. He begins, everything that seemed to be good now just becomes bad. And why? And it's because we sin. Because of our sin. What sin? The sins are the violations of the Torah. Okay? And this is a huge complex matter, but in simple terms, in the context of what we've discussed in tonight's conversation, right? Ultimately, it's because we've failed to see God in some kind of situation. And the second we fail to see God, you could be sitting in the same environment, but now that environment changes. And now you feel heavy, and now you feel dark, and now you feel like bad things are happening, and it just doesn't seem to be the same anymore. That's because the wheel has turned to the left. And if you're honest with yourself, this is only a byproduct of sin, like the Zohar just stated. And that's what it is, point blank. There's no other excuse. It's because of sin. And the sin is disconnecting yourself from God. It's not seeing God moving in your life. It's not knowing that whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're going through, whatever is happening to you is Yirah Hashem L'chaim. The ways of God tend to life. Some people might fall very sick. They get angry, they get mad, they turn to the left, become very dark. But they fail to realize the person on the sickbed draws close to the king. So perhaps the sickness was there because the Holy One, blessed be He, brought you even closer to Him than you could have ever been otherwise. Because if you weren't sick, you would never be as close as you are when you have nothing else to lose, when there's nothing left but God. When you're dying, that's all that's left. And the same thing in every other situation. So we even the hardships that we go through, it's towards life. The Holy One, blessed be He, ultimately has the goodness of every being at the heart of His actions. And this is opposite of ours. Because as I said, with these conditions of whatever it is that we call love, which is really just manipulation and control, we're forcing things onto people. And the byproduct is what benefits the self. Like as I said, by placing expectations, and those love, which is conditional love, ultimately conditional in the sense that I'm in love with my partner so long as they're in love with me. If they stop reciprocating that love, then I don't love them. But then that was never love to begin with. That was a lie. And so then we institute control mechanisms to change and manipulate people. And when we're doing that, that is the opposite of tending, caring, nurturing. That is the complete opposite of true love. Because the reality is You don't actually love those people. You love your ideals. You love the ideals that you've placed for those people. And when they don't meet those things, suffering is the byproduct. So this is what causes the direction of the stone to shift. As a result, the stone wheels change direction and become actions that will hurt humankind. Because imagine being in a situation where somebody is controlling you, making you feel less than, saying you're not good enough, critiquing every single thing you do. Instead of nurturing you, they're manipulating you in order to mold you to their own ideal, which is in complete error. And so instead of here nurturing and tending to humanity, it does the opposite. Actions that will hurt humankind. Because then when we take this onto a magnum scale, right, a macrocosmic level, it leads into genocide, leads into communism, it leads into the Holocaust, it leads into all kinds of things. But the reality is that these same ideals are rooted and can be manifest and clearly seen in love. And these stone wheels keep turning in that direction to the left until people perform good deeds again, which means the Holy One, blessed be He, will take it as far left as you want to take it. If you want to take it all the way to the left, He'll meet you when you have nothing but the dust in the earth, and He'll giggle you back if that's what it takes. If that's what it takes, because He's not going to give up on you either, because that's real love. But again, He loves you enough to allow you to make those mistakes. He loves you enough for you to be wrong. And He doesn't change because He's always there. You could be in the midst of your wrong. You could be in the midst of your evil. And if you had the desire to form Shuvah, God's right there immediately. So the direction in which the stone will turn depends on the actions of humankind. And the greatest action is just seeing God moving in everything. If you can see God and you know Yirat Hashem L'chaim, that the awe of God, that the ways of God tend to life, then you can avoid and always move to the right. Always move to the right. Even when somebody else's nonsense is moving to the left. Because the stone is a symbol of the soul. You can always move to the right by seeing God in everything, by understanding that God is trying to communicate something to you. Even when you have complex emotions, anger, sorrow, it's because of error. It's because of ignorance, of darkness, because you're not seeing the light. You're not seeing God working. Because darkness is not a counter force to light. Darkness is the absence of light. Light is God. He wrapped Himself in light. And so then, therefore, He does these things in order for you to eventually see that light. And therefore it is written, and is turned around and about by His counsels, that they may do whatsoever He commands them, because the counsel, which is the secret of the stone wheels, depends upon the actions of humankind, and it never stands still. It constantly evolves either to the right or the left. But when it goes to the right, it goes to the right indefinitely. You will always see God moving. You can look back at your whole life, and once you finally do have Mochin Eloha, once you do understand the ways of God, you can look at your entire life, and you will see God having moved through every single variable, every single event, every single thing happened. And sometimes God does things that we might not think is in our personal best interest, but it might be in the best interest of those that are around us. And we don't understand that because we operate, as I said, through those levels of conditions and through the ZOHAR, which is the will to receive. But God doesn't do that. God tends to the honor of every created thing. And so then sometimes things will occur because it's not meant to be specifically for you. It's because it's a blessing for someone else. And so sometimes we will incur a hardship, and we might not understand the nature of the hardship, But sometimes the nature of that hardship is because God is intending to bless someone around you. And the hardship is the precursor to that. It's the klipa before the fruit. And so if we're capable of seeing outside of our own self and seeing things at the way God sees things, and then realizing that he cares about the honor of all created things and not just me, then we can see even the hardships we don't understand. And maybe this person is prospering because maybe God is taking care of one person and not another person. But maybe that's what's needed. And the ways of God is not our ways, because our ways are to be selfish. And God's ways are to bestow. So come and behold, the Holy One, blessed be He, has created all the events and actions necessary to accomplish everything properly. And He'll use your mess. You can place a lot of chaotic variables in your life. Who brings a clean thing out of an unclean thing? It's just whether you want to do this the easy way or the hard way. But He loves you enough to let you do it the hard way. And He changes everything according to the needs. But ultimately, it's for the overall perfection. What is Gehinom and Sheol even for? It's ultimately for correction. Why does suffering exist? Ultimately for correction. It's so that you can't stay in error. You can't stay in error. And in truth, that is mercy. That is the greatest mercy God has, is that He will not leave you in that error or allow you to stay inside of that error. And so He created systems of things to prevent it from staying that way, and to encourage and push it always towards correction. And everything comes down and is drawn into the world from the main source and root above, which ultimately is in actions. The Holy One, blessed be He, brought Abraham to be close to Him. He then begot Ishmael, who was born before Abraham was circumcised, as Ishmael was born down below and was not perfected by the sign of the covenant. Later on, the Holy One, blessed be He, guided the course of events by His counsel, and Abraham was circumcised and joined the covenant. His name was completed, and he was called Avram, with the additional Hey. So the first Hey of the holy name, Yud-Keh Vav-Keh, which is Bina, became his crown, according to the secret of deriving water from air. Air is rooted in the word light. And because we know the water, which is a chesadim, which is the letter Hey, meaning 5, was drawn down out of Ur of the Chaldeans, which was Bina, during the development of Zeranpin. And though I said he was Chesadim, in truth, it's considered as if Gevuros, because it was Chesadim from the side of Bina. Because there's Chesadim and Gevuros from the side of Ima, and Chesadim and Gevuros from the side of Abba, meaning Chokmah. So as soon as the secret was perfected and Abraham was circumcised, Isaac was born to him. He was a holy seed, and was attached up above, according to the secret of deriving fire from water. And so it is written, and fire from water is a chesadim and gevuros. Before it was water from air, which is just the chesadim, and now it's chesadim and gevuros. I have planted you a noble vine, holy, a right seed. Hence he was not related to the other side, which refers to the left side alone. Instead, he was included within the right side. That is to say that Abraham made mistakes. But the Holy One, blessed be He, still labored with him and used the variables that he introduced by trying to control reality. Because the truth is, why was Ishmael born? Ishmael was born because Sarah said, go into Hagar. Why did Sarah say go into Hagar? Because Sarah did not trust God. Instead, she tried to control reality. She tried to control the way that God needed to manifest his blessing. And so they produced a great error. And Ishmael was born. Although the Holy One, blessed be He, ultimately utilizes this new variable. But nonetheless, that entire situation was a result of them not seeing God working, not doing things according to His will, but instead trying to control God, trying to control reality, trying to control the course of events to match your own personal ideals. In this case, Sarah was trying to manipulate reality in order to fulfill the prophecy because she didn't believe she could have a child. But this is a complete, utter lack of faith in God on every level, on every single level. And the same error of not being able to see God led to her death, because when she died, She died because she perceived that Yitzhak had perished and been sacrificed. And yet he was alive and well. And when Abraham sounded the shofar, it was to announce that he was alive and well. And he sounded it from the glory of the sacrifice that was provided in the place of Yitzhak, which he took the horn and formed the shofar. And it was upon the sounding of that shofar she dies. Zohar tech. And still, by the inability to see God. Yaakov did the same thing. He too fell in the inability to see God. When did he do this? Because he thought Yosef was dead, and he mourned and cried for many, 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 many years, while the truth is Yosef was alive, and he was sold as a slave in Egypt, and ultimately would become second unto Pharaoh. He'd become basically the ruler of Egypt. But because Yaakov failed to see God, failed to see Yirah Hashem L'chaim, and fell for the illusion of fear, which is the same thing Sarah fell for, the illusion of fear, meaning I can't have a child. I can't, it's all fear talking. If God wills it, a pig will fly in the sky. The same thing with Yaakov. If Yaakov truly knew God, do you think that God would have taken Yaakov's son and killed him, allowed him to be killed? That's not Yirat Hashem L'chaim. And so he failed miserably. And therefore he wasn't called Israel during that time, but Yaakov. It would not be called Israel again until he would see Yosef alive. Because then he was Yashar El, straight to God. Because then he realized he was in error. He realized that he didn't believe and trust in God. He didn't know that the ways of God tend to life. Instead, he focused on fear and illusion, which caused all this suffering, which are all lies. An error produced as a result of darkness, which is ignorance. Ignorance and darkness is the absence of the light. Because they were unable to see the light, meaning they were unable to see God moving. All of these things occurred. Come and behold, two separate nations come forth from Lot and his daughters, which were attached to the side that was appropriate for them, meaning the Sita Achra. This is why the Holy One, blessed be He, manipulates events and turns things around in the world. He wants everything to be well arranged and related to its place in holiness. This means that everything should be carefully arranged and properly planned to ensure the proper issuing of the kings of Judah and King Messiah. This is the meaning of the verse, and it turned around and about by his counsels, that they may do whatsoever he commands them. Because Lot was destined to produce King David, but now King Mashiach as well. Melech Mashiach is a byproduct of Lot and his two daughters, and Ammon and Moab, which is completely contradictory to the other lineage, because the other lineage is Abraham and Yitzhak. And yet here it's saying it comes from Lot. And why? Ultimately, because the Sita Akra needs to be brought into Kedusha as well. It ultimately needs to be corrected as well. And so the Holy One, blessed be He, changes things so that it's not just that side is all evil, that side is all darkness, because that's really impossible for there to be a permanent flaw in his own being. But the nature here and the purpose here is to bring about a correction to the other side. Because the way of the Holy One, blessed be He, is to tend to all of humanity, to tend to all of existence. Come and behold, Lot was worthy of having the Holy One, blessed be He, produce these two nations from his union with his wife. But in order to attach them to their predestined place, he produced them from his daughters. And this was achieved with the help of wine, which means that he had relations with his daughters. And so this is what I said, that the yichus is problematic. But this is the yichus of King David. This is the yichus of Melech HaMashiach. And at the highest level, Lot having relations with his daughter, that's something that's forbidden. So then what's going on here? And this was achieved with the help of wine, as it is written, and they made their father drink wine. This wine, which is a secret explanation of their actions, was prepared especially for them, and was not found on that specific night in the cave. If there had been no wine, these two nations would not have come into the world. Therefore it is written, and he drank the wine and was drunk, and this has already been explained. Ultimately, what he's saying is that he used this event, which is against Hashem, meaning that Lot having relations with his daughters, and ultimately produced Ammon and Moab, which these two nations would ultimately end up producing Melech HaMashiach and David HaMelech. How did this happen? So he used their error. He used the strong wine. He used Lot's relations. And even though these things were all in error, he ultimately turned them around for good. Come and behold, they called their sons Moab and Ammon. She called him Moab because he was Ma'av, literally from their father, because the daughters had relations with their father. Therefore, he was called Moab. He is born from my father, and the younger daughter also bore a son. And she called him Ben Ami, the son of my people, in a cryptic way, but she did not declare who fathered him. Son of my people, right? Which is to say, from their father. That means from themselves. Right? Come and behold of the elder daughter, it is written, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. This phrase, when she arose, is spelled with a vav, with a dot above it. This indicates that there was help from above in performing that action, which was to ultimately result in the birth of Messiah. This is saying it right here. This is scandalous language. They just said that there was help from above for Lot and his daughters to have relations with each other. That the Holy One, blessed be He, somehow orchestrated him to be drunk and have the strong wine in order to facilitate this event to occur, so that they could give birth to these two, Moab and Ammon, ultimately for the purpose of birthing the Messiah later. Of the younger daughter, however, it is written, nor when she arose without a vav, because her issue was not for the sake of the Holy One, blessed be He. This is why when writing when she arose about the elder sister, there is a dot over the vav. Even though the younger daughter also produced kings, Naamah the Ammonite was King Solomon's wife and the mother of Rechavam. Nevertheless, King David certainly is the most important of all, as he is Messiah. And they issue from Lot, not from the side of Abraham. This is completely perplexing. And this ties completely into why the Kabbalists talked about the yichus, or the lineage of Mashiach, is tragedy. It's a catastrophe. Because there's nothing noble about his yichus. There's nothing noble about his lineage. There's nothing noble about his existence. And because he has such a questionable yichus, they sent him off to the edge of the community to be a shepherd, so that he would be attacked by wolves and lions. But he prospered. But he was outside of the community. Rabbi Shimon then said, the meaning of the verse, he perceived not when she lay down or when she arose, is that he did not know that the Holy One, blessed be He, intended to raise from her King David and King Solomon and all the other kings along with Messiah. This is insane. I thought this should be Abraham. I thought this is supposed to be Yitzhak. I thought this was supposed to be Yaakov. And you're telling me that King David and all the kings of Israel and King Solomon and all of them are coming from Lot in this incestual relationship on strong wine? And they're the ones producing the kings and Messiah? What's going on here? How could the Sita Achra be producing the kings and Messiah? How is the Sita Achra doing that? Furthermore, the phrase when she arose is analogous of what was said with Ruth. And she rose up before one could discern another. And on that day she certainly had an issue, because Boaz mated with her to preserve the name of the dead and his lineage. Thus all these kings and all the noblemen in Israel were raised through her, according to another explanation. And he perceived not when she lay down, resembles the words, and she lay at his feet until morning. It is written, when she arose, and she rose up before one could discern another. This is why when she arose is spelt with a vav and a dot above it. The difference between this explanation and the first is that here it is explained in the verse, and he perceived not when she lay down as well. In the first explanation, he did not explain the verse. And also, and what does it mean to perceive? It means that he did not perceive God working. He did not perceive the hand of God doing something. They were unable to perceive, which means that when she went up from this action, from this deed, they did not see that the Messiah and the kings of Israel and Shlomo Amelech would issue from them, because they could not see God working. And this is an incredibly important lesson, especially about the nature of the Sita Achra. And it's why one must show love for the convert. Because we see the bad, it's easy to see the bad, but we aren't discerning what God is trying to do. Because the highest lights come from the Sita Achra, not the side of the Kedusha. It didn't say Abraham birthed Yitzhak, birthed Yaakov, and then later on Mashiach comes on down the line. It said here this incestuous relationship birthed from a drunken relationship between a father and his daughters ends up producing the kings of Israel, ends up producing King David, King Solomon, and ultimately the Mashiach. Which means that the Holy One, blessed be He, uses the Sita Achra to bring about even higher lights, greater lights than any other lights, because it said all kings come from that side. Which means all kings come from the Sita Achra. This is the reason why the Baal Shuvah will always stand in a higher place. But what's even higher than a Baal Shuvah is the Ger. It's the stranger. It's the convert. Because the power, the light that can come out of a convert, someone who comes from the Sita Achra, that comes from Lot, is the same potential of light that manifests as King David. And you want to know how great the Sita Achra is? It's so great. It is so great that a person who studies Torah and is not obligated to study Torah, Rav Meir says, this person is like a Kohen Gadol. He's like the high priest, someone who's completely klipathic in the Sita Achra. But the Sita Achra studying Torah, it's like a Kohen Gadol, which is so far beyond anything that can come on the right side. And this is deeply perplexing. Deeply perplexing. But I tell you that the Holy One, blessed be He, right now, when you start to see the Sita Achra, when you start to see somebody who was not born frum, that knew nothing about Torah, knew nothing about Hashem, and you start seeing them studying Torah, and you start seeing them obtaining those higher lights, and they have those higher lights, you have to fully understand what you're in the midst of, what you're witnessing. If you pay attention to the Mochin Eloha, if you see God's hand working, you are watching the highest lights, lights of the kings of Israel, lights of Mashiach, lights of the high priest manifesting right before you, and a non-Jew. It's terrifying. Come and behold, see how modest Abraham was from the beginning. When the Holy One, blessed be He, determined to execute his judgment on Sodom, Abraham pleaded for mercy, but he did not plead for mercy for Lot. Later, when it is written, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace, Abraham still did not intercede for Lot, and said nothing to the Holy One, blessed be He, in Lot's favor. And the Holy One, blessed be He, did not mention anything to him, so that Abraham would not think that the Holy One, blessed be He, had drawn on Abraham's merits because of that. Because Abraham here is personifying self-righteousness. See, Abraham was trying to control reality at the highest level. That's why it says he was not considered to be righteous. And the same thing that happened with Sarah. She was trying to manipulate and control reality, to control God's will. Lot listened, even though Abraham instituted his will, meaning separate from me, you go over there. And so what did he do? He separated. Why? Because he was following the turning wheels. Whatever direction God was taking him, he followed that route. And so then in this likeness, Lot actually obtained a higher status than Abraham. Abraham didn't merit to bring forth Mashiach. Lot did. Lot didn't try to control reality. Abraham tried to control reality. Abraham tried to play God. Lot didn't try to play God. Lot tried to fulfill the purpose of his existence by following the path God had made for him. He didn't understand the path that God made for him, but he followed it anyways. He wasn't even able to discern the reason why he laid down with his daughters, but he followed the process in which life placed before him anyways, and understood to some degree that God had instituted this thing. And who would have thought? You would think Abraham was the righteous one, not Lot. You think he's an evildoer, a dweller in Sodom, a Rasha. But one was following the flow of God in reality, letting God do his thing. And the other was trying to control God. The other was trying to control reality, control how God is to manifest his will, control how God is to accomplish his goals. That's why Ishmael was born. Why? Because he was trying to control God's promise. God promised something to Abraham, and he tried to control how God manifests his will. Lot didn't do this. Sarah did the same thing. She tried to control how God manifests his will. And God manifests his will. He manifests the light out of that darkness, out of things we don't even begin to understand. Because what I just described to you makes no sense that Yichus, that lineage should birth kings and the Messiah. And yet this is exactly what the Zohar is telling us. And this challenges everything we think we understand. Because again, God's ways are not our ways. They're simply not. And when we're truly honest with ourselves, we go back into, what is that love? What is that? What is love? Because when love is on the level of conditions, it's not real love. Real love is not merited on conditions. Real love is not about control. It's not about manipulation. We know that Abraham cared about Lot because Abraham risked his life for Lot by waging war against 4 powerful kings, as it is written. And when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, and he divided himself against them by night, and he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his brother Lot and his possessions. However, because of Abraham's love for the Holy One, blessed be he, and because he knew of Lot's misconduct, he did not ask the Holy One, blessed be he, to overlook Lot's actions. Thus he did not plead for mercy on Lot's account, neither in the beginning nor in the end. Because who are you to judge? And yet here Abraham is judging his own brother because he knew his misconduct, and he did not plead to God to help him because he's too busy playing God. He's too busy being the judge and the executioner. And this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. This is a sociopath, some megalomaniac, borderline psychopath. This is a Rasha at the highest level. And when you start to look at that, if you honestly look at how disgusting the motives are behind those things, you'd be terrified at yourself. Because if you were 100% honest with yourself, the thoughts of a man's heart are evil continually. It is so imperative. We're not going to go any further than this section. This is the synopsis breakpoint. This section is very long, and it changes the context in this next portion of the reading. We'll do this tomorrow at noon. But it's so incredibly important for us to get outside of our biases, to get outside of our perspectives, our ideals of how we perceive things, and measure God to those perceptions instead of seeing the hand of God working in everything. Once we start to see the hand of God working in everything, that's that Mochin Eloha, we can go to the higher levels. And we have to avoid biases. We have to avoid being a judge. We have to avoid executing in the case that Abraham just failed to do, which is terrible because on this level, his own brother had performed misconduct, but he would not pray for his own brother because of the misconduct, but he would pray for the strangers, but he doesn't pray for his own brother. And he doesn't pray for his own brother because he held some ideal upon him and he didn't meet that ideal, so he wasn't good enough. That's a terrible thing. And that's that conditional love that I talked about. It's love when it's reciprocated. So if Lot acted holy enough in Abraham's ideals, maybe he would have prayed for him, but he didn't meet He didn't meet the conditions for Abraham to love him. He still got him, but he didn't pray for him. So that brings us to the conclusion of our lesson. There are incredible things that are discussed in this portion, absolutely mind-boggling and very challenging. It challenges us to question the way we think about reality, about events in our lives, about what's going on, about what God wills versus what we will. Challenges our notions of what we think holiness is, where divinity comes from, rulers. It challenges our beliefs of what we think we understand about the Messiah. And ultimately, it challenges the beliefs on what we think about ourselves. And the greatest thing that we could learn from this portion tonight is to take time to see God in everything and to be honest enough with ourselves to understand that God uses destructive lights because of our error. And when you feel that error, when you feel your emotions, when you feel darkness, when destructive lights are around you, it's because you're not seeing God. You're not seeing God in the events, in the emotions, in whatever is happening to you. And once we begin to do these things, all the other things will fade away, because you'll see that Yirat Hashem l'chaim, that the ways of God tend to life. And God ultimately cares for the honor of every living thing, including Lot. He loved Lot so much, he sent angels to get Lot. That's how much God loved Lot. Abraham, Lot didn't meet his conditions, and so Abraham didn't pray for Lot. But God loved Lot so much, he sent angels to get him. So think about that. As David HaMelech said, open my eyes and I behold the wonders of your Torah. Many blessings to you all. Leila Tov, Shalom and Salah.
Thank you.
Shalom.